Hi, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about something that's near and dear to me, which is Fallout's music. I love ambient music. I have since college when a fellow engineer friend of mine, Layla, let me listen to a Jean-Michel Jarre album. And I was hooked. I bought all of his albums. I bought Brian Eno albums. I got into Patrick O'Hearn, just all the ambient stuff from the late 70s through the 80s and 90s. I was buying that all the time. When I got to Interplay in the 90s was a bit overcrowded. They were in a building. I remember we were so frustrated with how overcrowded it was that one time we went out and counted and there were like 90 parking spaces, but we had 120 employees. That's how bad it was. If you came in late, you just couldn't find a parking spot. It was similar inside with how we had to sit, and I was placed in a room called the Pit, which had 14 other people in it, and my cubicle, which the cubicle walls weren't even 5 feet, they're probably like 4 feet. Mine was right next to the fax machine. So all day I would just hear and then as paper shot out. And then of course people would gather around the fax machine and chat. And if I complained, people would say, well, we're doing business. No, I think talking about your kid's soccer game is not doing business. So I just went out and bought headphones and I just played ambient music 24/7. Whenever I was at work, I had my headphones on and I had ambient music going. So when I started Fallout, actually Fallout had another producer at the beginning, Tom Decker. I should do a whole thing about that. I found all my meeting notes, which means I have a complete agenda now of the Fallout timeline. When I took over as project leader, I finally got an office, but I still liked listening to ambient music. And poor JT, Jason Taylor, I remember there was one Aphex Twin song I liked called Ventolin that started with a high-pitched ee. JT hated that song so much. But hey, I was in an office now. I didn't need headphones. I think I switched back to headphones. Anyway, because I have all these notes, I know what songs I picked or what musicians I picked because I found the email that I sent to the audio director, Charles Deenan. I could do a whole video about Charles Deenan too. His favorite word was fucker. I would, I sent him a list of the music I liked and said, I would love if music could be made that sounded like it belonged on CDs with this music. So I found the list of musicians I sent, and it was Brian Eno, Aphex Twin, Synesthesia, Najimu, Techno Animal, Future Sound of London, O-Rang, Scorn, and then I threw some Depeche Mode on there, not because they're ambient, but just because I liked Depeche Mode. And it had that dark element I liked. And sure enough, when Charles Deenan told me that he had hired a musician named Mark Morgan, and he had taken my notes, and we did have some back and forth. I mean, he sent me some stuff, and I would send him responses, and then I started dropping in the game, and the team would have comments. But Mark did such a good job. I don't know if he's ever talked about the process, but it was one of the smoothest processes of making music for a game I've ever been involved with. And I loved the final music. We loved it so much that Scott Everts burned CDs for all of us for the Fallout soundtrack. And I think Jason Anderson, it was his idea to call it the soundtrack of a moribund world. One day, because I found this in my notes as well, I will sit here and list all of the names we had for Fallout before Brian Fargo came up with the name Fallout, because some of them are really bad, and moribund shows up in a lot of them. Anyway, that's where Fallout's music came from. Huge debt of gratitude to Mark Morgan and Charles Deenan and all those ambient musicians that I love so much.